My mom smiled and said, "We knew you wouldn't mind helping your sister." After I found my stuff thrown into storage and my sister had fully moved into my apartment, so I filed multiple police reports. Here I am sitting in a hotel room because my own apartment isn't mine anymore, at least not in any way that feels familiar. 2 weeks ago, I left for what was supposed to be a relaxing vacation in Europe, my first real break after 3 years of working non-stop at my marketing firm. I saved for months, planned everything meticulously, and was genuinely excited to disconnect from everyday stress. The trip itself was incredible. I visited cities I'd always dreamed of seeing, ate amazing food, and actually managed to avoid checking work emails for almost the entire time. That all came crashing down the moment I opened my apartment door yesterday. At first I thought I had somehow entered the wrong unit. The layout was the same, but absolutely nothing else was. The walls had been repainted from my preferred dark blue to a pale pink. My furniture, a leather sectional I had saved for months to buy my carefully curated bookshelves, my desk set up for gaming all gone. In their place were items I'd never seen before. A floral couch, white IKEA furniture, and framed artwork that definitely wasn't mine. I stood frozen in the doorway, convinced I was hallucinating from jet lag. Then I noticed a photo on the wall. My sister, Addison 26F, with my parents at her college graduation. That's when I knew this wasn't a mistake or a prank. This was deliberate. I immediately called my Super James, who came up looking extremely uncomfortable. He hemmed and hawed before finally admitting that my parents had coordinated this renovation with him while I was gone. Apparently, they told him they were the owners of the apartment. They're not. I bought this place with my own money 2 years ago, and that I had approved the changes. I absolutely did not. Your folks said it was going to be a nice surprise for you, James said, avoiding eye contact. They said your sister needed a place to stay for a while and you had agreed to let her use your apartment. I was speechless. Addison has always been the golden child in our family. She struggled to hold down jobs after college, constantly starting and abandoning career paths while my parents financially support her. Meanwhile, I worked through college, saved diligently, and built my life independently. The contrast in how we've been treated has always been stark, but this crosses every conceivable line. When I finally gathered myself enough to call my parents, their response was infuriating. "We knew you wouldn't mind helping your sister," my mom said cheerfully, as if she hadn't just orchestrated a complete violation of my property and privacy. Addison needed a fresh start after her breakup with Tyler. "And your place is in such a nice neighborhood. You're always working anyway, so we figured you wouldn't be there much," my father chimed in. "Besides, we put all your things in storage. You can get them whenever you want. We paid for 3 months up front." When I asked where I was supposed to live, my mother suggested I could crash on a friend's couch for a bit until I found a new place, or maybe stay with Addison until she gets back on her feet. Let me be clear. I did not give permission for any of this. I did not offer my apartment to my sister, and I certainly did not authorize anyone to move my belongings into storage. I called my sister next, hoping she might at least recognize how wrong this was. Instead, she acted like I was overreacting. "Mom and Dad said you were fine with it," she insisted. "They wouldn't have done it if you weren't okay with it. Besides, I really needed this." Tyler was so toxic, and I just couldn't stay in our apartment after the breakup. She then had the audacity to add, "The place looks so much better now. Don't you think I'm currently in a hotel? Because I refuse to sleep in what feels like a stranger's apartment. I've contacted a lawyer who specializes in tenant rights and property law, and I have a consultation tomorrow. I've also filed a police report about the unauthorized entry and removal of my property, though the officer seems skeptical since it was my family involved. I'm at a complete loss. My parents have always favored my sister, but they've never gone this far before. They've essentially stolen my home and given it to her, and they genuinely can't understand why I'm upset. My sister seems to think I should be grateful for the upgrade they gave my place. Am I overreacting here? And more importantly, what are my next steps to get my home back? Update 1. 2 weeks later, the super admits everything. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice on my original post. The past 2 weeks have been a nightmare, but having so many people validate that I'm not crazy for being upset has been incredibly helpful. I met with a lawyer as planned the day after my last post. She was appropriately horrified by the situation and confirmed that what my family did constitutes several legal violations, including breaking and entering conversion of property and potentially fraud, since my parents misrepresented themselves as the owners of the apartment to my building super. With her guidance, I took several immediate steps. 1, I sent formal letters to my parents' sister and the building management company demanding the immediate return of my apartment to its original condition and the return of all my property. 2, I gathered all documentation proving my ownership of the apartment, including the deed mortgage statements and tax records. 3. I filed a more detailed police report with supporting documentation, though the officers still seemed reluctant to pursue criminal charges against my family. The most significant development came yesterday when I had a meeting with a building management company and James, my super. Under pressure from both my lawyer and his employers, James finally came clean about everything. According to him, my parents approached him about 3 months ago, well before I had even planned my vacation. They told him they were planning a surprise renovation for me and asked what the building's policies were. He explained that as an owner, not a renter, I could renovate as I wished, but any structural changes would need approval. They returned a few weeks later claiming they were the actual owners of the unit and that I was just living there while establishing myself. They showed him some paperwork which he now admits he didn't scrutinize closely that they claimed proved their ownership. They said they wanted to make improvements to the property and also help out my sister who needed a place to stay. James admitted he felt uncomfortable with the arrangement but said my parents were very convincing. They gave him a generous tip for his assistance and assured him I was aware of the general plan even if the specific changes would be a surprise. The building management company was mortified once they understood the full situation. They've issued a formal apology, placed James on administrative leave pending an investigation, and have committed to helping restore my apartment to its original condition, including covering some of the costs. When I confronted my parents with this new information, their story changed completely. Now they're claiming they were just trying to help both their children and that they truly believed they were still on the deed somehow, despite the fact that I've been making mortgage payments for 2 years and they attended the closing when I bought the place. My sister's reaction has been even more infuriating. Rather than acknowledge the violation, she's angry that I'm making such a big deal out of this and ruining her fresh start. She actually told me I was being selfish for not being willing to help her after her breakup, as if orchestrating an apartment theft was the only way I could have supported her. The storage facility where my belongings were taken has confirmed my parents rented a unit in my name using a credit card. I've been there to check all my things, and while everything appears to be there, some items have been damaged from careless packing. My expensive gaming PC setup was particularly poorly handled, with several components clearly broken. My lawyer is pushing to resolve this without going to court, but she's prepared to file suit if necessary. The immediate goal is to get Addison out of my apartment, my belongings returned, and damages paid for, and the apartment restored to its pre-Ash renovation state. I'm still staying in a hotel, which is becoming financially straining, but I refuse to stay in the apartment while it's in its current state. It feels like such a violation that I can't even bring myself to sleep there. The building management has offered me a different unit temporarily at a reduced rate, which I'm considering. The most disturbing part of all this is how my entire family, parents, sister, and even some extended family who have gotten involved seem to think I'm the unreasonable one. My aunt actually called to tell me I should be more understanding of Addison's needs, and that sharing is what families do. I'm standing my ground, but the emotional toll is immense. I've always known there was favoritism in my family, but seeing how far they're willing to go breaking the law, lying, gaslighting me when caught has been eye-opening in the worst possible way. Thanks again for the support. I'll update when there are significant developments. Update 2, the psychological toll. It's been 2 months since my last update, and while there have been some positive developments legally, the personal and emotional aspects of the situation have gotten much worse. First, the practical updates. My sister finally moved out of my apartment 3 weeks ago, but only after being served with formal eviction papers. She took her sweet time claiming she needed to find somewhere suitable despite having had weeks of notice. When she finally left, she took some items that weren't hers, including my remaining kitchenware and several small electronics that had been returned from storage. The apartment itself is in rough shape. Beyond the unwanted cosmetic changes, paint, wallpaper, light fixtures, there's significant damage to the hardwood floors. Several large holes in the walls that have been hastily covered with framed pictures, and a persistent smell of cigarettes, even though I have explicitly told Addison many times over the years that I don't allow smoking in my home. The building management has been surprisingly supportive throughout this ordeal. They've covered a significant portion of the repair costs, fired James the super for his role in the deception, and reduced my mortgage payments for 3 months as additional compensation. They've also improved their verification procedures to prevent something like this from happening again. My parents, on the other hand, have gone from defensive to outright hostile. When they realized I was serious about pursuing legal action, they tried a different approach. My father called with what he clearly thought was a generous compromise. They would pay for half the repairs to my apartment if I agreed to let Addison stay there for just 6 more months, while she gets her career on track. When I refused, he exploded, calling me selfish and ungrateful, bringing up every instance where they had helped me financially, which were few and far between, especially compared to their support of Addison. My mother's response has been more passive-aggressive. She's been calling mutual family friends and relatives, spinning a story about how I've always been jealous of Addison, and I'm now punishing her for being their favorite. This has resulted in a barrage of messages from extended family members, some taking sides, others urging us all to work things out for the sake of family harmony. The worst part, though, has been watching my relationship with my sister deteriorate beyond repair. Growing up, despite the obvious favoritism, Addison and I were actually close. We had our issues, but we were still siblings who cared about each other. Now she refuses to acknowledge any wrongdoing on her part. According to her, she was just accepting help from our parents and had no idea I wasn't consulted. When confronted with the fact that she must have noticed all my belongings were gone and replaced with new items, she simply shrugged and said, "I thought you were getting rid of that old stuff anyway." Mom said you were ready for a change. The psychological toll of all this has been immense. I've started seeing a therapist to deal with the anxiety and betrayal I feel. I've had trouble sleeping, concentrating at work, and trusting people in general. If my own family could violate my boundaries so completely and then act like I'm the problem, who can I trust? My lawyer continues to build our case, documenting all damages and violations. We're pursuing both civil action against my parents for the property damage and fraudulent misrepresentation, as well as criminal charges for the breaking and entering and theft. The police have finally taken the matter more seriously after my lawyer's involvement. Though they're still moving slowly, I've also had to take a hard look at what kind of relationship, if any, I want with my family going forward. My therapist has been helpful in working through this, but the reality is stark. My parents and sister have shown they don't respect me, my boundaries, or even basic property laws. They've demonstrated they're willing to lie, manipulate, and gaslight me rather than acknowledge their wrongdoing. I'm back in my apartment now, though it's still undergoing repairs. The pink walls are gone, replaced with a neutral gray, until I decide what I really want. The furniture is mostly from storage, though some pieces needed to be replaced due to damage. It doesn't feel like home yet. I still have moments where I walk in and experience a jolt of disorientation, but I'm working on reclaiming my space. For now, I've decided on limited contact with my family while the legal process unfolds. Each conversation seems to devolve into accusations and guilt tripping, which my therapist has helped me recognize as emotionally manipulative tactics. Thank you all again for your support and advice. It means more than you know to have outside perspectives validating that this situation is as outrageous as it feels. Update 3. An unexpected ally. It's been half a year since this nightmare began, and I'm finally starting to feel like I'm regaining control of my life. The legal proceedings are moving forward. My apartment truly feels like mine again, and I've come to some important decisions about my family relationships. But the most unexpected development has been finding an ally in Tyler, my sister's ex-boyfriend. About 2 months ago, I received a message from him asking to meet. I was hesitant at first. I barely knew him beyond occasional family gatherings, but he said he had information that might be relevant to my situation. When we met for coffee, Tyler revealed that his breakup with Addison wasn't what my family had led me to believe. According to them, Tyler was toxic and controlling, and Addison needed to escape their apartment after he broke things off. The reality, according to Tyler, and backed up with considerable evidence, was entirely different. Tyler explained that he had begun noticing concerning financial behavior from Addison about a year into their relationship. She would make large purchases without consulting him despite their agreement to discuss any spending over $200, and was consistently late with her share of the rent. When he tried to address these issues, she would become defensive and accuse him of trying to control her. The real breaking point came when Tyler discovered Addison had opened several credit cards in his name and racked up over $15,000 in debt. When confronted, she didn't deny it, but instead insisted she had planned to pay it all back before he noticed. She said she deserved nice things and that he was too obsessed with saving money. Tyler broke up with her immediately and began the process of disputing the fraudulent charges and repairing his credit. That's when my parents got involved. They showed up at his apartment, accused him of abandoning Addison over a simple misunderstanding about money, and demanded he take her back. When he refused and mentioned potential legal action over the credit card fraud, they threatened to ruin his reputation and career. They even contacted his employer with false accusations. This pattern sounded disturbingly familiar. The same family who had stolen my apartment and gaslit me about it had done similar things to Tyler. He showed me text messages, emails, and financial statements that corroborated his story, including threatening messages from my father that were eerily similar to ones I had received. Tyler had been following my situation through mutual acquaintances and recognized the parallels. He offered to provide a statement for my legal case detailing his experience with my family's manipulation tactics and dishonesty. He's even agreed to testify if necessary, saying he wants to make sure they can't do this to anyone else. His involvement has significantly strengthened my case. My lawyer was able to use his evidence to establish a pattern of behavior showing that my parents' actions weren't a one-time lapse in judgment, but part of a consistent disregard for boundaries and legal norms when it comes to helping Addison. As for the legal proceedings themselves, there have been major developments. The criminal charges for breaking and entering were ultimately dropped. The DA felt it would be difficult to prove criminal intent given the family relationship, but the civil case is progressing well. We've documented over $18,000 in damages to my property and belongings, plus the hotel costs while I was displaced. My parents, realizing they were likely to lose in court, finally agreed to a settlement last week. They'll pay for all damages, my legal fees, and additional compensation for the disruption to my life. The settlement includes a restraining order preventing them from entering my building without explicit written permission from me. Addison, meanwhile, has moved back in with our parents. She's been telling anyone who will listen that I've destroyed the family and chosen money over blood. She's even started a GoFundMe claiming she's a victim of domestic abuse who had to flee her home, conveniently leaving out that the home was mine, not hers. Fortunately, Tyler was able to get it taken down by reporting it as fraudulent. The most significant change has been my decision regarding family contact. After much reflection and work with my therapist, I've decided to go completely no contact with my parents and Addison for the foreseeable future. The consistent manipulation, gaslighting, and refusal to accept responsibility has made it clear that a healthy relationship isn't possible at this time. It wasn't an easy decision. Despite everything, there's still that ingrained desire to maintain family connections. But as my therapist pointed out, they have repeatedly shown they don't respect me as an individual with rights and boundaries. They see me as an extension of themselves, a resource to be used for Addison's benefit. Tyler and I have maintained contact and have actually developed a friendship. We meet occasionally to discuss our progress in recovering from my family's manipulation, and it's been incredibly validating to have someone who truly understands the specific type of chaos they create. My apartment is fully repaired now, and I've made some changes of my own, choosing new paint colors. I actually like furniture that reflects my taste, and significantly upgraded security measures, including cameras and a new lock system. The building management approved all the security upgrades and even contributed to the cost. Work has been understanding throughout this ordeal, and I've recently received a promotion that will allow me to consider moving to a new place entirely, perhaps in a different city, where I can truly start fresh. I'm considering my options carefully. The support I've received from this community has been a lifeline through the darkest moments of this experience. When my own family was gaslighting me, your comments helped me stay grounded in reality and gave me the courage to stand up for myself. I can't thank you enough for that. I'll post a final update if there are any significant developments, but for now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life and finding peace with the difficult decisions I've had to make. For anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts, document everything, seek professional help, both legal and psychological, and remember that you deserve respect and boundaries, even from family. Final update: finding peace and true family. It's been exactly 1 year since I returned from that vacation to find my life turned upside down. So much has changed, and I wanted to share a final update with the community that supported me through the darkest period of my life. The legal matters have been fully resolved. My parents paid the settlement as ordered, though they insisted on doing it through their lawyer rather than communicating with me directly. The money helped cover the remaining repairs to my apartment and allowed me to recoup most of my financial losses from the ordeal. I ultimately decided to sell my apartment. Despite the renovations and security upgrades, it never quite felt like home again. Every time I walked through the door, I felt a shadow of that disorientation and violation from last year. My therapist helped me understand that this was a normal response to trauma and that sometimes physical distance is an important part of healing. With the proceeds from the sale, the housing market in my area has fortunately remained strong. Plus my promotion at work, I was able to purchase a new place in a different neighborhood. It's actually a small townhouse with a tiny backyard, something I'd always wanted but couldn't afford before. The extra space has been amazing, and I've adopted a dog from a local shelter who has become my loyal companion. As for my family relationships, the no-contact decision has remained firmly in place. My parents made several attempts to reconcile in the months following the settlement, but their version of reconciliation never included genuine accountability. The closest they came was my father saying, "We may have made some poor decisions in trying to help your sister, but we had good intentions." That's not an apology, it's a justification. Addison has gone through several phases in her response to the situation. First came anger and victimhood, then a brief period of remorse, which coincided with her needing money, followed by renewed hostility when I didn't immediately forgive her. Last I heard, through mutual connections, she's moved to another state with yet another new boyfriend and career path. I've lost contact with some extended family members who couldn't understand why I wouldn't forgive and forget for the sake of family harmony. But I've grown closer to others who recognized the dysfunction and supported my boundaries. My mother's younger sister, who I was never particularly close with growing up, reached out privately to say she'd witnessed the favoritism for years and was proud of me for standing up for myself. She's become something of a surrogate mother figure, and we talk regularly now. Perhaps the most unexpected development has been my friendship with Tyler. What started as mutual support through a difficult situation has evolved into a genuine connection. We're not dating. We both recognized we needed time to heal from our respective experiences with my family, but we've become important parts of each other's lives. He's introduced me to his friend group who have welcomed me warmly, and we've developed traditions like a monthly board game night that has become a highlight in my calendar. Tyler has made remarkable progress in rebuilding his credit and financial stability after what Addison did to him. He's recently started his own small business, and I've been able to help with some marketing advice from my professional experience. It feels good to have a reciprocal relationship where support flows naturally in both directions without manipulation or scorekeeping. Through therapy, I've gained important insights about the family dynamics I grew up with. I've come to understand that my parents' extreme favoritism toward Addison wasn't really about loving her more. It was about her being more emotionally dependent on them, which fed their need for control. My independence and self-sufficiency were threatening rather than admirable in their eyes because they couldn't use it to validate their self-image as essential heroic parents. This understanding hasn't made their actions acceptable, but it has helped me process my childhood experiences in a healthier way. I no longer wonder what was wrong with me that made me less worthy of their support and attention. I can see now that the problem was never with me at all. I still have moments of sadness about losing my family of origin. Certain holidays and milestones can bring a wave of grief for the loving, supportive family I wished I had. My therapist has helped me recognize this as a normal part of the process. I'm mourning not just the loss of the actual relationships, but the loss of the possibility that they could ever be what I needed them to be. But those moments are balanced by the joy of building what therapists call a family of choice. Meaningful connections with people who respect my boundaries, celebrate my successes without jealousy, and offer support without ulterior motives or conditions. Between my closer extended family members, Tyler and his circle, colleagues who became friends and neighbors in my new community, I have more genuine connection now than I ever did growing up. As a final note, I've recently started volunteering with a legal aid organization that helps people dealing with housing violations and tenant rights issues. My experience showed me how vulnerable people can be when their home is violated and how challenging it can be to navigate the legal system while dealing with the emotional trauma of such violations. If my story can help others protect themselves or recover from similar situations, then some good will have come from this difficult chapter. Thank you all one last time for your support throughout this journey. When I first posted here, I was shocked, confused, and questioning my own reactions. Your validation and advice helped me find the strength to stand up for myself and rebuild my life on my own terms. I hope my story might someday help someone else who finds themselves in a similar situation. Life isn't perfect. It never is. But it's mine now. Lived according to my own values rather than in response to manipulation and guilt. And that makes all the difference.